Is your snow blower surging or worse, not starting at all? Or maybe just hard to start? I'm going to show you how I fix these issues. And I'm also going to show you how you could do it with just ordinary tools. Well, if that's the case, you either have some dirt or water in the carburetor that's causing the problem. If you left gas in your carburetor over the year, good chance you have some water accumulation in here. If you have one of these older carburetors, you could press this little pin right over here, and this will drain the carburetor without taking it off. And you might get by with that. Drain your tank and put fresh gas in it. If not, if you have one of the carburetors with no adjusting screw on the bottom, and it just has the bolt to hold it on, then you'll have to take the bowl off and clean it out that way. This carburetor's been on the snowblower for at least 6 years without taking it off and cleaning it. Gas has been left in it a couple of times, longer than it should have been. And I store it outside. This is long overdue for a clean out. Now, before I take it apart, what I like to do is clean the outside of the carburetor. It doesn't affect the performance or anything, but it keeps any of this debris from falling inside. And I just like working on it clean. So when I start taking it apart, I'm going to pull these 2 screws out to get to this screw over here, down here. It could be adjusted without taking it off, but the fact that I'm going to be pulling this carburetor apart, I'll be taking it off. And not only that, I'll be pulling this off to clean out in here. So let me get these few brackets off, clean it up a little bit, and I'll be back to show you what I find on the inside. All right, this is about as clean as I'm going to get it. Now, unlike a lawnmower carburetor, these really don't get that dirty because you're operating them in the snow. This is just weathered because it's been outside. Another advantage of cleaning them is that you could get the serial number off them, so if you have to order parts. Now, I don't know what I have left for parts on these old Tecumsehs. I've been away from my small engine repair for a while. I had a lot of other repairs, car repairs that I've been working on. But usually you'll need a gasket, the bowl gasket, and you may or may not need a float and a seat. This old carburetor, this is an adjustment screw down here. The new carburetors generally don't have these. They just have one nut. This serves dual purpose. You can make your adjustment, and it does hold the bowl on. So to get this off, we need a 11mm wrench. This is tight. Wow. This doesn't want to budge. Let me get a position on here so I don't bend anything. Normally when I clean carburetors, I'll take the old gas out of the tank and let them soak in that and clean it all up that way. If you have a washer, it won't hurt to put it in one and vibrate it in there. I don't have one. I generally just clean them out like this. And when they're really bad, I would actually boil them. I'm inside right now. Let's see what we got in here. Okay. A lot of this leaked out while I was working on it. I touched this pin a few times and it leaked. But you can see there's water in there. This will cause the surging. And you can also see it's causing some corrosion. Even though it's aluminum, it will corrode. The water in the gas will make it corrode. This ethanol gas is a big problem with these carburetors. I've taken some of these carburetors apart where the whole inside was corroded. And this isn't too bad. I could clean this up. I do prefer these old carburetors to the newer ones where you can make your adjustments. Now I'm going to pull this pin out. And see what we have in here. Another thing, when you're cleaning these carburetors, if you're using carburetor cleaner, you want to take this ring off, this O-ring. This is in good shape. I don't think this is original. It's in pretty decent shape. I may have worked on this once before. I don't remember. But anyway, if you spray the carburetor cleaner on that, they will swell up and they won't fit on right. So we're going to pull this float pin out. In case I don't mention it later, when you reconnect this needle, you have this spring here that holds it. And this spring, see this open end of the spring? This long part? You want to make sure, I'm trying to get a better view of this. You want to make sure this long end of the needle points towards the choke. Okay? That's important. In case I forget to mention it later, I want to mention it now. This is what we're left with here. The best way to clean this out is to pop these Welch plugs. There's one here and one up here. And clean out in there. Because you could clean this, you could even boil this, you could put it in the solution, hot water, let it vibrate, and still there could be a blockage in there. I've been fortunate so far where I haven't had that problem, but I don't have the Welch plugs to replace it, otherwise I would just do it. And see how I didn't get this debris under here? It's not going anywhere, but I like to have that all off when I'm working on them. So now, what I'm going to do, they sell clean out wires. I have the link down below. They sell the wires, and you can also use torch tip cleaners. They work well for this. I normally use bread ties, and this is a tie for, I believe, the big garbage bags. You can see there's two together here. These are thin enough to get into these passages, poke through every opening. I flush it out with the carburetor cleaner. I do it again, and then I blow it out with some air. Now this carburetor has different adjustments. We also have one over here that you won't see on some of the newer carburetors. And this is the idle mixture screw. This is the idle screw for the throttle, but this is the actual screw for the mixture. I'm going to take this out and clean out in here also. Before you take this screw out, you could turn it in and count the turns until it hits bottom. You don't want to force this in. Look how small that tip is. If you bend that tip, the screw is worthless. So you could turn it in until it seats, and when you reinstall it, bottom it out, and then just back out that many turns. Okay, we have that. And let's see what else we have. There's little passages in here. Let me see. Look how dirty this is. If the camera could pick this up, let me get this in the light a little better. You can see in here, there's these passages up here, behind it, on the bottom, right behind this, and off to the side, and on this other end, I don't know if the camera, see these three holes? Is the camera picking them up? I'm going to use this wire and go through all of them. Then I'm going to spray it and do it a couple more times. When I spray this out, I won't have it on camera. I don't want that spray hitting the lens of the camera. But again, there's these three holes right in here. On the other end, where are we? We have this in here. Yeah, that's a better view. We have this in here. We have the one behind it, the one underneath. You want to clean all of this out. This over here is where the primer hose goes. Now then, I'll say this is critical. Right in here, see this passage? You want to make sure this is clean, and now this screw, same thing. You could bottom the screw in, count how many times it went in. Okay. You can see some debris on the tip here. The camera's picking that up. So if it's on the tip here, we know it's definitely in here. So this is going to be cleaned out. On some of these main jets, they have a little hole right up in the thread. As small as it is, it's very important. This one doesn't look like it has one. This one doesn't have one up there. When I clean it up a little bit more, I'll see. It might pop up as I'm cleaning it. But look at this brass, just with the toothbrush. You can see the difference, see how it's shining. Okay. this definitely has to be cleaned out. But look at that water. This is your problem right in here. Some people will tell you to use the stabilizer in the fuel. I don't know how efficient it works with the ethanol fuel. I find it best to just drain all the fuel out, and I generally do. This is my unit, and I thought I drained this fuel, and normally I just burn it out. But evidently, it got by me last year. Maybe they were predicting another snow or something. I don't know why I left it in, but it happens to us all one time or another. So I'm going to clean this all up. I have this cleaned out, and there's a couple things I want to point out. Earlier I mentioned you'll find a hole up in the thread over here in some of these main jets. On this one here, if I cleaned it out somewhat, I did find one, and it's the slightest hole. And yet this little tiny hole, this thing being clogged, could cause grief. See where I have the wire going in? Okay. I don't know if the camera can pick that hole up, but it's a tiny hole, so you have to look for it. They usually have one up in here somewhere. Some of them actually have two. They'll have one up here in the thread and one on the other side. That hole will make a difference. And I mentioned it earlier because sometimes I forget to mention it. This open end of the needle has to be pointed towards the air intake. When we reinstall the float and this needle, here's the clip. And by the way, these older carburetors, these could be adjusted. We'll get to that in a minute. Get the clip on there. The open end is facing the air intake. I don't have the dexterity, what's that word? Dexterity in my hands that I used to have. Trying to keep this on camera. Oh. This isn't difficult to do. Keeping it in focus adds to my challenge. And they say 3 times is the charm. Let's see. Got it facing the right way. Yep. Maybe not. All right, I got it in. Put this pin back in. Okay. All right, and here's your float. Now, this float, something's not right here. See where it floats up? This float should be parallel. And the distance between this float and the base of the carburetor should be 11/64. If you don't have the tool, Tecumseh has a tool that does the measuring for you. Just get a drill bit and put a drill bit in here. Obviously not this pen, but 11/64 bit drill bit, and you'll get the right height. And to adjust it, you adjust that tear, but there's something that's keeping that pin from going down. I have to pull this out. Maybe something fell in there when I was cleaning. Let's see. Take this back out. I don't know why this isn't going back down in there. Oh, that looks right. I gotta get this camera out of the way to get a closer look. I don't believe this was like this before. I made a little bit of adjustment, but you can see it's still high. It's way too high. It's not gonna let enough fuel in there. I'm gonna adjust it a little bit more. Inside this seat, it's a replaceable seat. I forget the material that it's made out of, but I did spray carb fluid in there. It may have swelled up. Now, I did put my little prod through there, and it is opened. But if that's swelled up and that seat doesn't sit right, one or two things are going to happen. It's going to keep flooding, because even though it floats up, it's not going to stop the gas from coming out. or the hole's too small and it's not going to get enough gas and it's going to stall. I don't have another seat to put in there right now, so I'm not sure. I'm going to adjust this one more time to get it level. You can see by eye, I don't even need the drill bit. I can see it's off. And one other factor. Inside here is the emulsion tube. I don't have the O-rings to replace the one that's in there. You could get this tube out. Either you could take this plate off, plate on the other side. You can remove either one. What I usually do, I get a small Allen wrench. And when I get the Allen wrench in there, it gives me enough to push it down and get it out. Now, this may be an issue again because that emulsion tube should be cleaned out well. I sprayed in here several times, and I'm not sure if this one has it, but they usually have like little holes on the side. So if that has a clog in it or any debris, that's going to cause a trouble. I'm just pointing this out because I didn't do it in this video. I don't have the parts that I need, but I will be ordering parts for this because now I have the number. I can see what it is. And as far as these screws now, let's get this back on. Don't forget your bowl gasket. And when you put this bowl back on, I still have to make this adjustment. When you put this bowl back on, you see how the flow goes up? You want the deeper part of this bowl, which is this part right here, on the same side where the float goes up. On the newer ones, they're level on the bottom and you don't have to worry about it. And just get this on, put this back in. I didn't count how many turns it took to seat this, but the way I'm going to set it, I'm going to turn it all the way into where it's seated. Then I'm going to back it out 1 1/4, 1 1/2 turns. And as far as this idle, I'm going to back this out 1 1/4 turns. Once the engine warms up, I'm going to adjust it to where it's running the way it should. So before I proceed, I have to adjust this float. Looks like I had a dent in it too. I have to adjust this float, get it together. I'll get it on the machine, and we'll see how she runs. Oh, one other thing. When you take this float off, shake it. If this float has a hole in it, gas will get into here, and it won't work right. These old floats, they can be, if you do have a hole in it, you could hit it with a little solder, and that'll work. But the new floats are plastic, and you won't have that issue with the new floats. Until I reinstall this on the engine, that's it for now. So let me get this together, get it on the engine, see how she runs. All right, I removed all the old gas. The carburetor's connected. Gonna prime it, see if she starts. Okay, whenever I'm done with this blower, I always shut the gas off and let it run until the gas of the carburetor is burnt out. A couple other items on here. This snapped, and I'm going to take this gas tank off. This will be after the season. I'm going to take this gas tank off, make sure there isn't any gas in it. I'm just going to use a hot soldering gun and just melt this together. You can see that this is all original on here. This coming summer, I planned on doing it the past summer, but it hasn't happened. This coming summer, I'm ripping this down, breaking it down completely. Gonna sand, paint. I like to get the original color. If I'm leaving this outside, I'm losing the sticker, the original sticker. These Gilsons, from what I understand and what I was able to find out, they stopped building them in 1985. So this is an 85 or older. Been around for quite some time. Looks like it had some abuse before I got a hold of it. As I mentioned in other videos, this driveway is 300 feet and it's a stone driveway. So it gets its work out for me as well. But it's a monster. And this isn't like the steel that you get in the newer machines. This doesn't bend. This doesn't bend. This machine is a monster. I wouldn't trade this for a new one, no matter what. Well, that's a wrap for this video. If you found this video useful, entertaining, or know someone else who could use it, pass it along. And if you have any comments or questions, post them down below. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe. It's free. And be sure to hit that bell icon not to miss my new videos as I upload them. Until next time, stay warm and be safe.